Hey everyone, welcome back to our second episode of Two Beavs and a Mic. Two Beavs! And we're coming at you on National Drink a Beer Day. Hey, cheers. We need a National Two Beavs Day, but we'll talk about that some other time. So we haven't been canceled yet, luckily. And by cancel, I mean my beautiful wife Melissa is going to let us keep filming late night and getting drunk in her house. As long as we let her just keep watching her shows and leave her alone, we're all good. So here we go. Also, I'd like to let everyone know, and by everyone I mean all the wives and girlfriends out there, that we are not a porn site. Two Beef Sports is not a porn site. We are a legitimate sports website.
I would also like to let all of the wives and girlfriends know that most eligible bachelor, so spread the word.
Are you telling the wives and girlfriends that, or are you telling their friends that? Anyway, and by legitimate sports site, I mean we're a sports site. The only reason I'm throwing that out there is that's mostly for Crystal Darcy. We are a sports website, not a porn site. We got you, Taylor. All right. And we're also going to start talking some sports here. I'm sure a lot of you out there have seen The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Clint Eastwood, you seen it? You seen it?
The Wild Wild West.
The whole thing,
Clint Eastwood.
Sadly, I've never even seen it, but I know of it. But we're going to actually go backwards, and we're going to do the ugly, the bad, and the good, starting with the ugly. So here we go. Everybody, we're going to start with the ugly, and eventually the ugly is going to really start with the Cardinals. But before we get to that, we're going to talk about some of the rules going on in the NFL and in college football right now. Last month, my little rant, I talked about the new lowering your helmet rule and how everybody was upset about that rule. And then I said, basically, the refs are going to call it a lot in the preseason and try to get the players to adapt. And I think the players adapted and the refs adapted. And it really hasn't affected the game in the first 3 weeks of the season. Refs aren't calling it as much as they were in the preseason, and it really has been a non-issue, which is basically what I said would happen last month. But what has been an issue is the roughing the passer. But before I get to that, let's talk about that ASU San Diego State game. At the very end of the game, Manny Wilkins throwing up a Hail Mary to Frank Darby. Frank Darby leaps up, catches the ball at the 1 yard line, and gets a targeting penalty. San Diego State defender hits him right in the face on an illegal hit, and in the process, Frank Darby drops the ball. Now, don't get me wrong, ASU did not deserve to win that game. San Diego State overpowered them through the whole second half. But not to get into all the details of the game, really focusing on the rule right now, that it should have been a spot play. They should have gotten the ball at the 1 yard line where the penalty happened. It shouldn't have been just a 15-yard penalty. You should not benefit from an illegal hit. College football needs to look at a rule change. The sooner the better. I mean, not to complain as an ASU fan. I mean, it just put us at the 1 yard line with a chance to win that game that we didn't even deserve to be in to begin with. But that rule does need to be looked at and changed. And I feel bad for Darby, who would have caught the ball if he hadn't been hit the way he was. If you haven't seen it, we'll try to post something, find a video or something on it, and you'll see it here in a second.
I'm not going to lie, I was just processing the whole play in my head, and I was thinking the exact same thing that you just said is it should have been treated just like a pass interference and just placed on the 1 yard line. That's ridiculous that they
pass interference.
15 yard.
Pass interference in college football is not a spot foul. It's a 15-yard penalty in college. In the NFL, it's a spot foul. That's the difference between the NFL and college. So they called it just like a pass interference penalty in college.
They should change both those rules then.
Well,
at least the targeting, because that's a game changing.
The targeting is different than pass interference. I don't mind keeping pass interference the same, but a targeting penalty on an unnecessary hit should be a spot foul. The other rule, let's go to the NFL. Clay Matthews getting called for that roughing the passer last week is one of the most horrendous, ridiculous calls I've ever seen in my life.
So here he comes, right at you from the right side of your screen. And I want to see, is there helmet contact here? The helmet hits the shoulder, and that's what it is from the neck up. From the shoulder pad.
I know I backed the new lowering your helmet rule change because I thought it was going to better the game and force players to make better tackles and have better form and be safer, make the game safer. This roughing the passer crap that's what it is crap. Not being able to put your body weight on the quarterback, I don't know how else these guys are supposed to tackle. From day one in Pop Warner, you're supposed to drive the ball carrier into the ground. And that's what these guys are doing. I understand unnecessarily, which can be reviewed. So if you're unnecessarily putting your body weight, basically pile driving the quarterback into the ground, I can see that being a penalty. But that's not what Clay Matthews did. And then later on, William Hayes for the Dolphins, in an effort to flop off of the quarterback and not get a penalty, tore his ACL. So defensive linemen now are having to change the way they play and adjust, and I don't know what these guys are supposed to do. And it's sad to see a guy like William Hayes get hurt this early in the season because of it.
Remember growing up, all of the tackling drills that you used to do, it's with one of the dummies that you would have. You were taught to wrap up, keep your arms wrapped, drive down to the ground. I remember doing all those tackling drills, getting my knuckles all scraped up and bloody, and that's how you were taught to tackle. You wrap up, you drive them to the ground, put them on the ground. It's ridiculous that this is just because the linemen are 100+ pounds heavier than some of these quarterbacks that they're making this rule.
No, they're making the rule because quarterbacks are where the money's at. And the NFL knows that they don't want to watch C.J. Beathard play against, Sean Mannion if Jared Goff goes out. That's not what NFL fans want to see. They want to see the stars on the field, and they want to see the star quarterbacks on the field. And they're doing everything they can to keep them on the field and not hurt. But in doing so, you're hurting the game, and you're pissing off a lot of defensive players. I do know the competition committee is getting ready to meet next week with Roger Goodell and going to try to make a change here quick, but I don't think it's quick enough. They should have met this week. I've seen the NFL act pretty quick on stuff like this. So you might see a change of wording in the rules next week, hopefully more focusing on the unnecessary part, because what Clay Matthews did last week was not unnecessary.
Chocolate starfish, I'll take a water, baby.
All right, well, we're going to sing some Limp Bizkit lyrics. I guess that's the beginning of the ugly. The Cardinals, our Arizona Cardinals. Freaking ugly right now. It's bad. After the Bills beat the Vikings last week, there's pretty much no doubt on who the worst team in the league is. That's our Arizona Cardinals. They're pretty pathetic right now. And let's start at the top. Steve Kahn, the general manager. I hate how people compare his DUI to Michael Floyd's, and I don't want to get too deep into that because it happened a while ago now. Those were completely different situations. A lot of people call Michael Bidwell a hypocrite for not firing Steve Kahn at the time. The situations are different because Michael Floyd was not playing well. He was about to be a free agent, and then he got a DUI. No point in keeping him around. Steve Kahn has done an average job, has done a good enough job to keep around. A better comparison would be Bobby Massey from a few years ago. Got his DUI, got suspended for a couple games at the beginning of the season, was a serviceable right tackle, and we kept him around. So if you want to compare DUIs and situations as far as Michael Bidwell's decision-making, that's something to compare it to. I view his poor drafting as strike one, his DUI as strike two. He's still got a third strike, and the way they're playing right now, he is currently got his third strike's pretty much coming. In the last 6 years, he's drafted 42 players. 13 of those guys are no longer in the league. Only 18 are currently on this roster, and only 8 of them are starting, which includes guys like Chad Williams, DJ Humphries, who is a right tackle playing left tackle. I don't think he's a complete bust, but he's definitely not a left tackle in this league. He just only 8 starters on this team you built through the draft, and he hasn't done that. So with the way they're playing right now, it's completely obvious. Last month we talked about how this team has no depth. Well, apparently the starters aren't very good either. and it looks like he's on his last life. They'll probably let him finish off the season and let him go at the end of the season. But then that leads to Coach Wilkes, who is Steve times higher. I don't know. 3 games into the season isn't looking good, and I don't see a whole lot of hope for the future, even though they're about to start Josh Rosen, which we'll talk about in a second.
I'm gonna go back to Steve for a minute. Steve, I don't tread on you, man. I support you. I would have a beer with you. Mistakes happen. Happens to the best of us. But back to Wilkes, it's still early, still building process. Not impressed so far. I think we were expecting a lot more out of the Cardinals to go into the season, but still has possibilities of Rosen coming in. So we'll get to that point, but still work in progress.
I wasn't expecting a whole lot out of this Cardinals team. I was expecting more than this, and I expected more out of the starters. 2 of those starters I expected to be Dan Buchanan and Hassan Reddick, 2 first-round picks. Wilkes has come in and changed the entire defense. A lot of people call it a 4-3, but it's not a 4-3. It's a nickel defense. Only 2 linebackers on the field, and the reason being is because they want the best 11 on the field, which is what Wilkes said. 3 safeties, Antoine Bethea, Trey Boston, and Buda Baker, which all 3 are excellent players. So basically it's just 2 linebackers, and those 2 linebackers have to be high IQ linebackers and be able to stop the run. That week 1 game, Deion Buchanan was the worst player on the field. He can't take on blockers, and he can't be in the mix. He can't be in there in the box and taking on blockers because he got shoved around the entire game, which led to his benching. Hassan Reddick, as of right now, is not a high IQ linebacker, and that's why he's found himself on the bench. Last week he got in for 4 plays, and he was playing rush end. He was getting a 3-point stance. So it looks like for like the 4th time in 2 years now, or in 3 years if you count college, he's in a new position again. So it's hard for him to figure things out. Right now, Wilkes is going with the 2 veterans, Josh Bynes and Gerald Hodges in the middle. Not very talented, but they know how to call a defense, and they know how to stick their nose into the shit, basically. But still, you got 2 first-round guys on the bench. With Deion, he's in a contract year. I'd trade him. It doesn't look like we're going anywhere right now, and you might be able to get something for him. I didn't know if we were going to re-sign him after this season anyway. Being in a contract year, he needed to play well and he needed to stay healthy, which he's staying healthy, but he's not even a part of the defense right now. So I'd send him packing. Reddick still got a couple years under contract, so work with him. Maybe have him put on weight, and maybe him become Marcus Golden, who's in a contract year also. Be his replacement going into next year. But other than that, with Wilkes, give him time for right now. See if he can improve that defense. And they played better last week against the Bears. I know it was Mitchell Trubisky, whatever.
The Bears.
Yeah. As far as Mike McCoy, him and Bradford, I kind of put the offensive woes, which they're worst in the league, hand in hand. I don't know if McCoy was calling plays to protect Sam Bradford, or Sam Bradford was playing to protect himself. I'm not in the meetings with him. I don't know exactly what's going on, but Sam Bradford
He's a punk bitch.
Being 32nd in the league in the NFL, Sam Bradford also led the league in getting the ball out of his hands. He was the quickest to throw the ball in the entire league of all the quarterbacks. That tells you something. He's trying to stay healthy. And I don't know if that's the play calling, or I don't know if that's him. He's also hasn't been very accurate. He also doesn't move around in the pocket, which I think Rosen will do a little bit more. So he didn't really help out the offensive line. The other thing is we never established a running game, which I thought this team was going to be built around running the ball and then doing play action off of the run. If you don't have a running game, you can't do play action. You become one-dimensional. And forcing Sam Bradford behind that offensive line, which isn't known for their pass blocking, is a much better run-blocking offensive line, which I thought going into the season. Pass blocking is poor. Sam Bradford is basically just trying to stay alive back there. They need to establish a run game, especially with the rookie Josh Rosen coming in. Establish a running game to help protect him. and then hope that he can succeed if we can do that. We'll see what Mike McCoy does with Josh Rosen in the pocket. Hopefully, I'll give him 2 weeks. I'll give Mike McCoy 2 weeks to show improvement and show a better rapport with Josh Rosen. If they look like they had the last 3 weeks with Josh Rosen over these next 2 weeks, after week 5, I believe that's at San Francisco. You lose at San Francisco to them and CJ Beathard, and you're 0-5. See you later, Mike McCoy. What do you think about that?
Especially without a Jimmy G over there going against San Francisco. Ooh.
On the road. And Bruce Arians loved Byron Leftwich, our quarterback coach. And I know he's young. A lot of you probably remember him playing back in the day with the Jaguars. And Marshall, winning some games at Marshall. He's kind of an up-and-comer, and Wilkes kept him on his staff. There's only 2 coaches on Wilkes' staff that Arians, leftovers from Arians. So maybe he might be ready to take over. We'll see. But, yeah, I give 2 weeks to Mike McCoy. So offense, you got to run the ball more. Give David Johnson the ball more.
I think Rosen, I'm excited to see what Rosen does. I think it's going to help David Johnson a lot because they're actually going to be able to spread the field a little bit more. Rosen's going to throw 2-3 picks a game for these next few weeks, but he's going to be slinging the ball. He's going to get the ball to Fitzgerald down the field. Christian Kirk down in the slot. You're going to see a lot more from him, which is going to help David Johnson a ton. So I think they're going to make huge improvements having Rosen in there. I think Bradford was afraid to get hurt. He was hitting all of his checkdowns way too quickly, getting rid of the ball way too quickly, and not giving his team a chance to spread the field, which is hurting David Johnson. So
receivers have been really poor, all of them. Christian Kirk's playing a little bit better, but haven't seen anything from Chad Williams. So from here on out, defense played better. As far as predictions go, over the next 4 weeks, we've got Seattle at home, we're at San Francisco, at Minnesota, and home against Denver. I've got us losing all 4 of those games. Jeremiah?
3-1. 3-1.
Jeremiah's got us
going
going
first.
3-1. The only loss being at Minnesota. Overall, over the next 13 games, I've got us going 1-12. 1-12. The only game I have us winning over the next 13 games, even with Josh Rosen at quarterback, you're going to see a little bit better production, but you're also going to see some big mistakes with a rookie quarterback behind that line and no running game. 1-12. The only win being at home against the 49ers with CJ Beathard at quarterback. Jeremiah's got them going 7-6. 7-6.
Chosen Rosen
with Josh Rosen. So that's a wrap on the Cardinals. All right, let's continue with the ugly, the Arizona Diamondbacks. For most of the season, they weren't ugly. They were very good. And then the month of September happened. The last time we were filming, I believe it was the beginning of the 4-game series against the Dodgers. We won game 1. And then the next night, Greinke blew it in the 8th. And we lost that game. And then the next night, Archie Bradley blew it. And then the next night, Archie Bradley blew it again. 2 nights in a row, Matt Kemp. Home runs, Dodgers. So lost 3 games of that series, lost 2 out of 3 to the Braves, all downhill from there. The month of September sucked. It was ugly. So Diamondbacks are now looking at off season. Here they got tonight and tomorrow against the Padres.
Big series against the Padres.
And then that's it. That's a wrap. I think Mike Hazen, the general manager, and Torey Lovullo both came over from Boston before last season and thought it was a little more of a rebuild when they were coming in. Didn't expect the success that they had right away. And were, I think, a little caught off guard by it, but handled it well, made the right moves, especially the J.D. Martinez trade. But it kind of pushed back the Diamondbacks for 3 years now have had one of the worst minor league systems in all of baseball. I think when they came in, they expected to start rebuilding that minor league system. But when you're constantly winning and you're constantly heading into the trade deadline, needing to make moves to better your team, you're going to move those prospects. Now, we haven't killed ourselves with those prospects. Haven't traded really any of the top guys, but have still traded over the last 2 years probably 6-7 top 30 guys. And you can't do that and rebuild the system when it was bad to begin with. So going into this offseason, I think they're looking at possibly the beginning of that rebuild. Now, when I say rebuild, I don't mean a full blow up of this team. I think we can still compete while rebuilding. So kind of keep an open mind about that. Basically keep the core of this team together for the most part going into next season, but not spend a whole lot of money, and see if you can get guys like Jake Lamb coming back healthy, Steven Souza healthy. Later on in the year, Taiwan Walker coming back from his Tommy John. See if you can kind of piece all that together. Robbie Ray has been outstanding last month, one of the few guys who has been outstanding. Hopefully he can carry that into next year and maybe kind of go on another little run next year, and who knows what happens at the deadline. But the first move that I would make with this team is letting A.J. Pollock and Patrick Corbin walk. They're both going to want a lot of money. Patrick Corbin has pitched outstanding this year, and being a left-hander, he will be the top left-handing pitcher in free agency. Born and raised in New York, grew up a Yankees fan. He's going to end up being a Yankee. All right, it's written on the wall. Maybe a Met, we'll see, but he will not be here next year. There's no way we can afford it. He's going to break the bank. And A.J. Pollock's going to get paid somewhere, and I don't think he's worth the money with the injury risk. He's been injured his whole career, and I'm sorry. I love the guy. Plays great center field when he's healthy, but he's going to make a lot of money somewhere, and he's a premium position. He's going to fit somewhere, and somebody's going to pay him. So let the two of them walk. But when
that just makes me nervous, though. Yes, I completely agree letting him walk because we can't afford him. He gets injured way too often, but it makes me nervous on who's going to play center field.
That's the problem. We still have Gerard Dyson under contract. Come back healthy next year. And one other move I make is I re-sign John Jay. Bring back John Jay, a left-handed bat, can be your fourth outfielder, play center field in the pinch. I also moved Christian Walker to left field. He's got a big bat. He's been a first baseman his whole career. He's dabbled in some left field. Give him a shot. Put him out there in left and basically say the left field position is up for grabs between Christian Walker, John Jay, and Chris Owings. Bring back Chris Owings. Hopefully he can bounce back next year. He's having a strong September too.
Shit, the Diamondbacks going to get rid of Peralta, and then all of a sudden they're going to throw Owings in center field. We're back to him trying to catch fly balls bouncing off the knee.
Actually, I'm sure a lot of you are freaking out by what he just said. The Diamondbacks are going to get rid of Peralta. That was what I was going to say next. The big move, I think, two big moves. One is re-sign Paul Goldschmidt. The moves of the Cardinals, or not the Cardinals, the Diamondbacks that I want them to make are going to piss off a lot of Diamondback fans. If you re-sign Goldschmidt to a long-term deal, I'm talking like a 7-8 year deal. Make him a Diamondback for life. Keep the fans in the seats, keep the fans happy, and still build around Paul Goldschmidt. He's still got 3 or 4 prime years in his career left. Give him a 7-8 year deal, maybe $20 million a year. Bring him back. I know a lot of people want to trade him and see what you can get, but here's what I would do. I would trade David Peralta. Okay? He's cheap. He's arbitration eligible over the next 2 years. Really good contract, and I think he has hit his ceiling. The best season he has had was this season. He's 31 years old. Trade him. Bring in a few prospects. That's how you start the rebuild. Trade David Peralta, and then as far as the offseason goes, bring back John Jay, possibly bring back Clay Buchholz, or another veteran 4th, 5th pitcher. Roll with Robbie Ray, Zach Greinke, Zach Godley. Who am I forgetting? Well, you're going to have to replace Corbin. Bring back Buchholz. Duplantier, I think is his name. Down in the minors, he's not quite ready.
No.
But at some point, he will be. Taylor Widener will at some point be ready. But trading Peralta to start, re-sign Goldschmidt. Next season at the trade deadline, hopefully you're still competing. Hopefully you're still putting a good team out there. Souza needs to bounce back. Lamb needs to bounce back. At the deadline,
my man's already talking about the trade deadline next year.
At the trade deadline, if we're not in it, you've got a lot of pieces to trade, and that can really, really get the rebuild going. Nick Ahmed, Jake Lamb, Robbie Ray, Steven Souza.
Got to clear up that Tomas money here.
Archie Bradley at the deadline could be a trade piece that you can move. As far as the bullpen goes,
I got you.
As far as the bullpen goes, I wouldn't spend a whole lot of money on that either. I would let all of those free agents walk. Diekman, Ziegler walk. I'd make Yoshi the closer. I'd keep Bradley in the same role he did this last year. Let him come back from his fingernail issue. Hopefully he develops that second and third pitch a little more. But I want to see the young guys come up and be a part of that bullpen. T.J. McFarland, we can bring him back. I want to see Jimmy Sherpy. I want to see Yohan Lopez, who's been electric. I want to see Bracho a little bit more and bring up Jake Barrett. Bring those guys up. Have a bunch of young arms in the bullpen. Fresh young arms. And then you still got Boxberger. I don't know what you do with him. I probably just let him walk.
You just named like 12 like relief pitchers, man.
That's the bullpen. And it was like 6 dudes. It was Sherfy, Bracho, Barrett,
the sheriff,
Yoshi. Oh, that's another thing. I'd probably let the sheriff, Andrew Chafin, walk. The dude's been garbage. His stats are a total lie on how good he has been. You need to go out and find yourself a real good loogie, left-handed pitcher that can get some lefties out.
A loogie.
A loogie.
A loogie.
That's pretty much the Diamondbacks.
All right. Go get a loogie.
All right.
Not hear that part.
So we finished the Cardinals and the Diamondbacks, the ugly, and now we're moving on to the bad, which used to be ugly. Phoenix Suns are no longer ugly. They've graduated to bad. But that could change by the end of the season. Still don't have a point guard. And it sounds like a work in progress, but we're now about 3 weeks until the start of the season, and you kind of need one of those. Also, you got to hurt Devin Booker, his shooting hand. Everybody thinks he's going to be back, hopefully right around the start of the season, but how long is it going to take for him to get right? It could be a month before he's the Devin Booker that we all expect. So with no point guard and not a healthy Devin Booker, I'm sorry, this is a bad team. We're talking another top 5 pick.
Booker's gonna be fine. It's his damn pinky. It's gonna be he'll be fine.
So, and he might be playing point guard. Who knows? Who knows what this team is going to do? So probably looking at another bottom 5 team. There's been rumors of us trading for Jeff Teague, rumors of us trading for Patrick Beverley. I think from what it sounds, those are the 2 best options right now, which, okay. Hopefully we don't have to give up a whole lot to get those guys. The Teague name is getting floated out there because of the Jimmy Butler. Everybody keeps talking about the Suns being a part of a 3-way deal. We'll see. But something has got to happen because we can't go into the season with the 3 young guys, Shaq, Harrison, Okobo, and D'Anthony Melton as the 3 point guards. What's up?
How about a little side note to help the Suns out? We need a point guard. Let's go see what the fuck Jaheed Carson's up to.
He hasn't played in like 2 years.
Nah, he's probably out in Europe, something like that.
And he wasn't any good in Europe. So,
we'll see.
Happy National Drink a Beer Day, everybody. All right. So now we've done the ugly, the bad, and now we're going to move on to the maybe good, possibly good. And we're going to talk about the Coyotes.
Oh!
It was good.
Yeah, that was good.
All right. Coyotes have announced Oliver Ekman-Larsson as their captain, which was expected. He deserves it. The Coyotes went with no captain last year. Now they got one. The successor to Shane Doan, the 4th captain the Coyotes have ever had. Donor, Kachuk, and Teppo Numminen. And now Oliver Ekman-Larsson. I'd like to see him toughen up a little bit, maybe getting a few more scraps.
Still waiting for that Shane Doan puck, by the way. Shane Doan, the call out. Send your boy a puck. I see all those pucks in those AC commercials. Side note.
I still don't think that's going to happen. But I'd like to see him be a little tougher and show a little more leadership and just embrace that captaincy. Doan was the best. He really was. He did all the little things that you really needed a captain to do. And Ekman-Larsson played, 6 years with the guy. So he knows how it's done. Surprisingly, he's still real young. I think Ekman-Larsson's still only like 27 years old, which is crazy.
I think the first game he should just beat the shit out of someone.
Okay.
Just throw down and beat the shit out of someone. Side note.
After all the success that they had those last couple months of last season, they need to build off that success. They need to start off strong, establish themselves early. All those young guys, they played a lot of 19, 20, 21-year-old kids. They need to take that next step. Another year, there's a lot of talent on this team, a lot of young talent. Just be a little tougher and assert themselves out there on the ice. I want to see a lot more toughness and a lot more guys just not taking it, especially to start the year off. You got to start off strong, not like you did last season. Problem is, right now they're kind of beat up. Three of the centers of the top four lines, I think Stepan's beat up. Dvorak's beat up right now. Strome's hurt. And also the guy we got for Max Domi, who's very, very similar to Domi's story. Had a real strong year a couple years ago, and then took a step backwards last year. So we traded Domi kind of for the same type of player, and I wish I could say his last name. It's Alex Gallicanukis. Gallica? Galuchika?
Just call him the Galaxy.
Oh, fucking Galicanakis.
We're going to learn how to say this dude's name, but a lot of people are hoping for big things from the guy. He's young. I think he's only like 23 years old, 24 years old. So very, very similar path in his career so far as Domi. So hopefully he can take that next step this year that he did a couple of years ago. So we'll see. They moved Clayton Keller to center off his wing position. So I hope that doesn't kind of screw him up after damn near winning Rookie of the Year last year. The kid's super talented. Still, I think he was 20 last year, so he'll be 21 this year. Expecting big things out of the kid. But my prediction for the season, they won 29 games last year. I think they can win 39 this year. Barely missing the playoffs, but still see a lot of improvement. See those kids take the next step, and then I think we're looking at next year. Next year's the year that we're going to make big things happen. These kids getting used to Rick Tockett's system another year, and I think we'll be good to go next year.
I think the way we finished last year, we were on a hot streak. The last 20 games of the season, we were playing some awesome hockey. We were the worst team in the league up until those last 15, 20 games, and we showed a ton of improvement. Those young players start playing a lot better. I'm going 48 wins this year,
which would be 19 more than last season and put them as the second best team in the Western Conference and winning their division.
You heard it here first.
Which a lot of you out there, if you don't know hockey, the Western Conference in hockey kind of became like the Western Conference in basketball. Western Conference in hockey got stacked this offseason with a lot of teams just loading up. So the Western Conference is going to be a lot more difficult to navigate through than last year. And the fact that I got to win in 10 more games than last season is going to be pretty impressive. This guy with the 19 and winning the division, we'll see. And now we've finally gotten to the good. We've done the ugly, we've done the bad, and the good, the issue football. Before the season, the experts picked them to go 5-7. We're not the experts. The experts had them going 5-7. I predicted that they would go, I think, 5-7 also. In my original prediction, would you go?
One or two losses.
You said 10-2 Pac-12 champs and Rose Bowl champs.
Still smell those roses.
But I also predicted 5-7. So right now they're 2-2. I had them 1-3 at this point. I believe Jeremiah had them going 3-1, but they're only lost to Washington. But Herm's got them going in the right direction right now. 2-2 with that big win over Michigan State. The big thing right now is with a little bit of success at the beginning of the season, if you can take this team to a 7-5 record, that is a successful season, a successful first season for Herm with what the expectations were. Build off of that. That's what Todd Graham did not do. That's what Dennis Erickson did not do. Both those coaches had initial success when they first came in. And then 4 or 5 years later, the program isn't what it was. They didn't recruit the guys now, at this point. The guys that Herm recruits now, at this moment, will be the guys that save his job 3, 4, 5 years from now. So they need to make it happen. Now, they've got 14 recruits right now. Everybody's making a big deal that he's focusing a lot more locally, which is great. But when they hired Herm Edwards, him and Ray Anderson, the athletic director, promised 4- and 5-star recruits. They promised NFL caliber talent. All 14 of these recruits are 2 and 3 stars. And that's not going to cut it. They need to step up their game. They need to bring in the 4 and 5 stars. But But what I do like with the recruiting classes is Herm has definitely focused on the offensive side of the ball. I believe 4 of the recruits are offensive linemen, and 2 of them are pocket passing quarterbacks, which tells me that Manny Wilkins, who's a senior now, once he leaves, they might go to a more pro-style offense, which I've been calling for years. And when they hired him, they said they wanted to be more of a pro-style college, a pro-style program to feed these NFL teams. And if you want to go out and recruit those big-time quarterbacks with the big arms and recruit those linemen, that's how you got to sell it. We're going to get you to the NFL. We're going to run pro-style systems. And basically be like Stanford without the academics. That's how I would sell these kids. These big-time linemen and these big-time quarterbacks might not have the grades. Say we're going to be the Stanford East, basically, over here in Arizona. And that's how I would recruit these kids.
The dummies of Stanford.
So, as far as the play on the field, you know what? Manny Wilkins is getting a lot of hate right now, but honestly, the kid's thrown 1 interception. He's been game managing. I'd like to see him keep doing that. That's the way this team is going to win.
Keep on hurdling, Matty.
Keep the ball
Jump
in
over
our
some
hands.
people.
The problem is I think we're running into, and I think it's the coordinator and it's the way we want to play the game because I don't think we have a backup quarterback. He's not running as much as he used to in the past. I'd like to see him run more, but I think they're afraid of him getting hurt because if he gets hurt, we're in trouble. We really are. We've got nobody behind him right now. So I'd like to see him run a little bit more, and I think it would open up this offense a little bit more. But what I did like last week, we established the run game. Michigan State, we couldn't run the ball. San Diego State, we couldn't run the ball. But then we changed it up last week. We ran the ball some.
We got to spread the field. We weren't spreading the field, and then finally when we got down in the game, we started spreading the field again.
Well, part of the reason is we couldn't run the ball those couple weeks. But last week we moved a couple offensive linemen around, and Herm has shown the ability to adapt, which I really like. He saw that we couldn't run the ball those 2 weeks and saw that we struggled in that San Diego State game. We had to run the ball. And Herm said it after the game. With the game plan with Washington was to keep the game close and then try to win it in the end, which he did by running the ball, eating clock, and keeping the ball out of their hands. And we don't have the talent that Washington does. And if you can keep that game close, it's hard to talk about moral victories, but keeping the game that close on the road, that's a really good football team. And I know a lot of people would have liked to have seen us pull out the victory in that one, but we kept it close. We fought hard. I'd like to see the defensive front 7 improve a little bit. I complained last week about them getting stood up a little bit at the line of scrimmage instead of getting pushed forward. Rennell Wren has been outstanding all season, but Jalen Bates stood up a lot throughout that game, and just see a little more push. I know you got 2 freshman linebackers, and they're both going to be beasts when a few years down the road. Merlin Robinson doesn't look like a freshman. That kid's a freak. So there's a bright future.
What do you mean? The future is now.
Well, playing those kids now. But I liked what I saw out of the team last week. They need to take care of business against Oregon State tomorrow. Oregon State was picked before the season as the worst Power 5 conference in all of football, in all of college football. Take it to them. They got smoked by U of A last week. We're a better football team than U of A, flat out. Take care of business tomorrow. Go out there, smoke them. You can't.
I think we're going to spread the. I think we're going to, like I just said, I think we're going to spread the field a little bit more. I think Harry is going to go 175 yards, 2 touchdowns tomorrow at least, because they're going to spread the field a little bit more, which is going to open up the run game for them.
Here's my prediction. I think they're going to focus so much on Harry. I think Frank Darby and Kyle Williams are both going to have big games tomorrow.
I think it's going to be a receiver battle the entire game. We got Harry on one side, then there's a up and up senior receiver down for the Beavers, Timmy Hernandez, one-handed Timmy Hernandez. I don't know if you saw the Nevada game a couple weeks ago, making one-handed catches. The dude's a crisp pattern runner. Hands of the softest hands. Did you ever see Little Giants, the movie Little Giants, when the dude catches the little toilet paper? There's perfect hands. That's what Timmy Hernandez reminds me of.
Sticky hands.
Sticky hands kids. Yeah, it's Timmy Hernandez with pine tar in his hands catching toilet paper.
We
That's
love
how
you,
he catches.
Timmy. We're hoping the score is going to be something like 50-14, and you got like 110 yards and 2 touchdowns, and that's all Oregon State does. That's what we're shooting for.
And then have the 2 extra points because he's in a perfect hold on both of them. But
He's a holder too.
I mean, he's a local kid.
I try not to watch too much Oregon State
so.
football other than Tim. I didn't know he was a holder. So as far as predictions goes from here on out, I've got the team going 4-4 here on out, which I still think is a successful season. 6-6, I'll take it. Year one under Herm. Over the next 4 games, I got us beating Oregon State, losing at Colorado. We haven't played as strong on the road as we have at home, and Colorado's playing good right now. I've got us losing to Colorado. I've got us losing at home to Stanford. Stanford's had our number for years. And then we're going on the road against USC. Usually by that point in the season, USC's got it figured out, and I don't think we beat them on the road down there. So I've got us losing 3 out of the next 4, but finishing the season strong. Jeremiah's got them going 4-0 over the next 4 games.
So we're going to beat Oregon State, and you know why we're going to beat Colorado? Because when we're up in Colorado, they're going to be drinking that same Rocky Mountain water that is provided in the awesome Coors Light drinks that we drink, that we enjoy so much. The mountains are going to be blue. The ASU Devils...
They're going to be drunk? That's why we're going to beat them?
We could beat them drunk. We'll be a little bit tougher if we're drunk, because it's a fact that you're stronger when you're drunk. So
they're going to beat us?
We're going to be tougher. We're going to be better. No.
We're going to be drunk.
No. Hey, I'm going to be drunk. Colorado W.
Anyway.
Stanford W.
How are we going to beat Stanford?
Because we're going to bring a bunch of that Rocky Mountain water back with us, and we'll beat Stanford at home.
We'll be out by the time we go to USC. How are we going to beat USC?
Because we'll be spreading the field by then.
Oh.
Spreading the field, run the ball, and USC, they've been garbage this year. USC is garbage. They're not the same USC that we're used to.
So I got us going 4-4. Jeremiah has 9-1 from here on out. Now you would see with the 9-1, that's 2 extra games. That would be the Pac-12 championship that he has us winning, and then going and playing in the Rose Bowl and win in the Rose Bowl.
Still smell those roses.
All right, that's going to wrap up second episode of 2 Beavs and a Mic. This one, I think we actually recorded everything this time, so hopefully editing goes smooth. We'll see. But the reason we did a Jaeger bomb at the beginning, I know a lot of you probably haven't seen or had a Jaeger bomb probably in like 12 years or something like that. Totally old school. When's the last time you did a Jaeger bomb, man?
Tuesday.
All right. It's been about 10 years for myself, but the reason we had a Jaeger bomb is because a couple weeks ago, the NHL announced Jägermeister is now the official alcohol liquor of the NHL. They are embracing the party lifestyle. So I figure we bring back the Jaeger bomb and knock a couple of them down. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. Big thing is, we enjoy the feedback. We enjoy chatting with everyone on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, all our posts. Bring up what you think, your opinions, your thoughts. We love to hear it, and we love to get back at you with it. But we're going to finish it with another Jaeger bomb.
A Jaeger bomb. I also want to throw out, right before we do the Jaeger bomb, though, a little Ryder Cup action coming at you tonight again. USA, few golf. USA chants.
Golf expert.
Phil with a W. Tiger struggled a little bit last night, but Ryder Cup's pretty exciting. So might fill you in on a little Ryder Cup action coming up next time with the golf expert.
I don't even know what he just said.
Jaeger bombs.
Cheers.
Go Yotes!